Welcome back to the Business of Defense, sponsored by ASMC on Federal News Network. I am talking with Sunny Singh, the President and Chief Executive Officer of AON, a global service provider of transformation strategies, advanced processes, and comprehensive technologies to the Department of Defense and other government agencies. Sunny, thank you again for being with us today. You have a unique background. You are an immigrant. Your parents are immigrants. You came to the CE role not through the traditional route of college, business school, consulting firm. Can you talk a little bit about your background? What's your origin story?
Absolutely. So I'm the son of a refugee. My father moved here back in the early 80s due to religious uprising in the area that we were originally from. I'm a Sikh American. Growing up in the environment that I grew up into, education wasn't obviously always my focus. So I didn't do that great in high school, but understanding that background, my dad is a cab driver in Washington, D.C. My mother's worked at a convenience store her whole career since we've been here. So understanding not wanting to do the same thing, I wanted to try something different. So right out of high school, I got into traditional retail banking. I did that for a while. I was very successful there. I became a branch manager at a very young age. And then right after that, I realized this isn't what was next for me. This is not something that I wanted to continue doing. So after that, I wanted to become an entrepreneur, but being very young, and I like to say young, dumb, and broke, I realized there wasn't a whole lot I could do. So I was able to find a small moving company doing about $100,000 in annual revenue. It was a guy in a truck that was looking to do something different. So I took that over, and I was very fortunate to be able to scale that and grew that very significantly. And in 2013, I was awarded a prime contract to move military personnel domestically and internationally. And in addition to that, I received a couple of storage contracts for military service members that were moving for storage and transit. And in 2015, I was approached by a publicly traded company, Waste Management, to acquire my business and help them run their logistics government division. So I did that for 3 years. And after that, I like to claim I've never moved anybody in my life, and I had a lot of success there. So call it confidence or arrogance, whatever it may be. I felt like I wanted to have a different challenge altogether. Given that success and the opportunity this country has given me, I love supporting the government any way that I can. Very fortunate to be able to do that moving and storage industry, and I wanted to continue that. That was sort of the main thing I was looking for. And my thought's always been a leader's a leader's a leader. So a good leader should be able to go into different industries and lead people. And the fact that I'm not from an industry, that was really helpful for me in the moving and storage industry. That I got a different viewpoint, got to look at things from a different viewpoint that folks that were in that industry their whole careers might not have necessarily thought about. So I wanted to get into something completely different and try something different, and hence that's where I landed on Artland and how I got there.
Yeah, so you got a very diverse background. You started out in banking, then moving in storage. Worked some time in the corporate world, then came back into government contracting. With that background, what strengths do you believe that brings to the position you're in now?
Understanding people. I've seen all sorts of people. One of the things I like to say when I was in the moving and storage industry, we used to have average labor rate that we were paying was about $12 an hour. So, majority of my employees, that's where we were at the time. So to go from having $12 an hour employees and making sure, that they're in the workspace that they need to be in and managing that, to go into the corporate world and going to board meetings and dealing with fellow executives, to now being completely in the white collar space and dealing with folks with different backgrounds. It's really given me an understanding of people, and I like to think of myself as a people person, and to lead different type of people, it's an opportunity.
How does this affect your views on diversity, equity, inclusion in the workplace?
I'm very fortunate, given my background, to be in the position that I'm in. I do feel like we live in a great country where this opportunity presents itself. Again, my dad is still a cab driver in Washington, D.C. today. It's not something he did for a year. It's what he's done for the last 30-some years. And I'm the CEO of a company with roughly 700 employees. There's not a lot of places in the world that you can say that that's possible. But that being said, there's obviously a lot we can do better in this nation as well, and I completely understand that. I was fortunate enough to be awarded a Diversity in Business Award very recently, and I also acknowledge that I think people of color, women, et cetera, do need more opportunity. So within our own organization, we've set up a DE&I council, employee-led and run. We have an employee-led and run women's networking group, and we try to do our part in making sure that we can reach out to fellow minorities or people of need to be able to present them and give them an opportunity at our organization that may not otherwise have one.
You've benefited throughout your career by some very strong mentors. Can you talk a little bit about some of the advice some of the mentors gave you that helped you get to where you are, and what you're doing now to mentor some up-and-coming leaders?
Absolutely. So a lot of the advice is it's how you take it, right? So one of the best pieces of advice I ever received was, be the best version of yourself. It's a cliche. What does that mean? Right? And I think, like, even if you and if I sat in your chair and made the same exact decisions that you're making every single day, I might have a different end result. Or if you did that for me, you might have a different end result. I think we need to be just ourselves, right? There's some things that we're good at, and really we don't need to change for other people based on what other people are doing. You'll see, like, hey, get up at 4 a.m. and read a book every day. That's not for everybody. There's a lot of successful CEOs out there that don't do that. There's a lot of successful CEOs out there that do that. It's really based on your individual self. And that's the same sort of message that I try, anybody that I speak to that has interest in growing up and going into this lane, this is the same message that I try to give them.
So play to your strengths, is that your advice?
Play to your strengths.
Great. Let's go back to one of the topics we talked about a little earlier, and that was kind of the competitive landscape. In some respects, the defense budget has been fairly stable. There's a request on the Hill for $773 billion this upcoming fiscal year. That's good for the market that you're in. At the same time, there's a lot of inflationary pressures, a lot of talk about recession, and as you mentioned earlier, there's just a lot of competition out there. You're in kind of that mid-market space where you've got to compete with the bigs on one side, the smalls on the other. So how are you looking again at the competitive landscape and the risks out there right now?
I mean, the risks haven't changed over the years. Obviously, now we're dealing with inflation and other things, but we were dealing with different challenges a few years ago, which, the labor market, and it hasn't gotten much better, but that was sort of the challenge that we had about a year or two ago. So there's different risks all the time. So we just sort of need to be able to adapt to it. COVID was a big risk, right? We didn't know what the future was going to be or if we're ever going to be able to go back and do things in person again. So there's always risks, and once inflation's over and the competitive landscape changes, it's still going to be more risks that come about. So we as a team try to get together every week and discuss what we can do to focus on our employees, to have good retention and make sure we're recruiting the best workforce out there.
Is the war for talent, is that a challenge for you right now? Do you see that easing up in the near term, or is it going to be some time before there's a little bit more flexibility with the labor market?
Yeah, it's absolutely a challenge, but it also helps us get better. We need to make sure that we're doing the right thing and we're providing proper benefits and we're trying to set our culture. It keeps us honest for all organizations. I think every CEO will tell you that. Yes, it's not great to have the challenges that we're all facing now in the labor market, but at the same time, it's making us a better organization at the same time.
So what's next for Sunny Singh? What's next for Aon?
We want to continue to grow organically. You mentioned it earlier. We've done a lot of acquisitions. We did those for a reason. We didn't just do them to put them together. We did those to continue to provide excellent service to our clients. So we want to make sure that we can actually act on that now and go out there and prove to our clients, hey, there's a reason that we put this together, and continue to be successful that way. What
are some of the opportunities you see out there right now coming out of government?
We're 70% focused in the Department of Defense. That's where majority of our work is. We also have a big presence at NASA and at FAA. So there's opportunities across the board at every agency that we're at right now. But we'd also like to break into some agencies that we're not. And I think having the success that we have, we continue to demonstrate that even with these organizations coming together and Aon being formed, if our success continues, it'll make it easier for us to go to our clients or go to clients in different industries or agencies and say, hey, we've proven it here, we can do this here for you as well.
What are some of the challenges that you run into when looking to break into another agency or another area of government compared to the Department of Defense?
We just don't have experience in the area. That's generally the number one challenge that we have. And now being a large organization, not competing with small businesses anymore, it's that much more competitive to get into that space. So we try to make sure that not just for our employees, but we're also good teaming partners to smalls and large organizations out there. So we have a wide variety of organizations that we work with that may be in different agencies, and we try to do our best to be good partners to them as well.
Has your teaming strategy changed over the last few years? Going from a small to mid-size, are you looking for more prime contracts? Are you still working to work as a sub to a prime? How does that mix look going forward?
Generally, the way we look at it, whatever is best for our clients. The way we can continue to support our clients, whether that's via a prime opportunity or a sub opportunity, we're open to both. What has changed is, hey, now that we're large, we're obligated for most ways to sub out some of our work to small businesses. So we want to make sure that we have the right small businesses that we're teaming up with. Again, culture is important, not just when you're acquiring, but when you're teaming as well. So we want to make sure that we're teaming up with organizations that think the way that we do, that have similar mindsets and similar ways of retaining and hiring employees as well.
What leadership advice would you give, or general managerial advice would you give to somebody coming into this industry?
Be the best version of yourself. Said it before, said it again, and this is a people-focused business. Without our employees, we're nothing, literally. I mean, without our employees, we have a bunch of laptops and an office space. So I mean, this is a people-focused business. So make sure you're listening to them, make sure you're talking to them. Walking the hallways, I think, is critical as a CEO. We can't just be in a locked space and not hearing what your employees are saying. So it's critical to do that.
I'd like to thank today's guest, Sunny Singh, President and Chief Executive Officer at Aon, for his insights into Aon's corporate strategy, mission, culture, and services. Watch us again next month, where we will bring you inside the companies working to drive transformation in the defense sector, to hear directly from their business leaders and to understand how they create value for their companies and their customers. I'm Rich Brady, CEO of the American Society of Military Comptrollers, and thank you again for joining us. You are listening to Federal News Network. For more on this discussion, visit federalnewsnetwork.com and search ASMC.